Tonight, crisis on the border. We're there and we'll show you what's happening next on America's Hope. Good evening, I'm Kelly Wright. Welcome to America's Hope. Tonight we continue our special focus on the crisis at the border. The latest developments unfolding as we speak. House Republicans voted to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas over the border crisis. In a statement, President Joe Biden called the impeachment a blatant act of unconstitutional partisanship, playing politics with the border, the president says. Now, while the impeachment is historic, it provides very little relief to Americans living along the border. In another development, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp is taking action to help tighten border security.
We have no choice but to step in. Therefore, I'm announcing today that in addition to the Georgia Guardsmen already stationed at the border, we will send reinforcements to Texas this spring who will assist with the construction of a forward command post on the border with Mexico.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott recently discussed how the failures to secure our southern border is leaving us wide open to an infiltration of bad actors like MS-13 gang members, terrorists, and other bad actors who seek to destroy the sovereignty of the United States.
I think the local residents around here are angry, and rightfully so. Because their area, their neighborhoods, their golf courses, their shopping areas, all have been invaded. But I cannot tell you the number of ranchers and homeowners who live, whether it be here or in Del Rio or up and down this entire area, who cry and complain about their ranches being ripped apart, their homes being invaded, fearful about their children playing in the streets, all the car chases that are taking place in neighborhoods. This has turned into a danger zone for one reason. It was not that way 4 years ago. 4 years ago, this was an area of law and order, a safe area for people to golf and play and enjoy it. And that's because we had a president who was enforcing the immigration laws of the United States. Their property, their land, their safety, and their enjoyment of it can all be restored if we have a president who enforces the laws of the United States, as opposed to being hostile to that and being hostile to a state simply trying to enforce the laws of the United States.
Let's think about what's going on right now. Child trafficking, human trafficking, drug dealing. There's very little hope here along the border. What's your hope for America to try to get through this?
Well, I think, again, if the federal government would come in and do its job and then seal this border and enforce the immigration laws that are on the books, then certainly that would have a big deterrent in giving us the ability to start to enforce all of the illegal drugs and all of the human trafficking and all of the criminals that have entered into the country illegally. I mean, we see it again and again. All of these states have their jails full with those who have entered the country illegally and then went out and broken our laws. That's a problem. I mean, even today, there are laws inside on the federal books that say that if you enter the country illegally and then you are convicted of a list of crimes, you should be automatically deported, and yet the federal government is not even doing that. How are they ensuring the safety of American citizens when they won't even enforce those laws?
What's your hope for America?
Look, at the end of the day, we need to be thankful that we live in a country that people are trying to break into instead of break out of. Still the greatest country on the face of the world. And we need to be thankful for that, but we also have a responsibility to protect it. Because I want my kids and every kid growing up in this country to get to have the same America that we're growing up in right now. But we're going to have to fight for it and protect it if that's what we want to pass down.
And so there you have it, some common ground between those three governors. Now, what they talk about shows that there is a serious problem in their thinking at the southern border. But don't take the word of a few Republican governors. Let's hear from people actually living in the border towns to see what they're going through. People like Kinney County Attorney Brent Smith.
You know, in Kinney County, we have about 3,200 residents, and we share 17 miles of border with Mexico. And, you know, the vast majority of residents, or probably about half of them, live on ranches or agricultural based or hunting ranches. And so it's mainly ranches and some farm property here.
Are most of your legal cases on those 3,200 people, or are you overburdened by illegal immigrants?
I can tell you my caseload right now, we have through Operation Lone Star, we've in the process of prosecuting over 5,000 cases for criminal trespass dealing with the border, and we have about 30 cases for the county. So out of 5,030, give or take, 30 of them are county residents and 5,000 are due to illegal immigration. Prior to this crisis, we would get, somewhere around 6 to 7 cases, criminal cases from the county. And then once this crisis began, we had 400 cases a month versus 6 cases a month. And so, that's how we reached over 5,000 so far.
How much of a burden is that on you as well as the county?
Oh, it's a huge burden. When I first took office, I have one secretary, and that's it. And now through Operation Lone Star, I have about 8 different legal assistants and 2 assistant prosecutors to handle that caseload. We went from a small county prosecution to something like Denton County and near Dallas would handle, or Galveston. The numbers were astronomical.
And that's because that's a sign that they're searching for
Gotaways. Yeah. And usually there's gotaways from a human smuggler bailouts, where a human smuggler crashes the vehicle and everyone just runs. And, if they run in opposite directions and they know they have a better chance of getting away, or people just coming through the town, walking and trying to evade law enforcement. Kinney County is situated in a way where Del Rio is to our north and Eagle Pass is to our south. And they each have a port of entry, but we don't have a legal port of entry here. So all the numbers we get are gotaways. They don't want to be caught by law enforcement. And it has to really make you wonder, with everyone getting turned loose with a cell phone and a credit card, why wouldn't you want to just give up? If you're evading the law still, there has to be something they're really running from.
And understand that these gotaways are also called OTMs other than Mexican, meaning that they could be coming from any number of foreign countries. And some of those countries like China would be adversarial to the United States.
True, yeah. OTMs other than Mexicans, they make up a percentage of the gotaways we have here. I mean, they're the gotaways, from what I can tell, they're from several different countries all over the world. And so it's just it's a national security threat. I think one thing people miss in this whole debate, it's not about immigration any longer. We have surpassed that. This is not an immigration debate. This is a national security debate. And what's sad is that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that we're attacked again. And the amount of terrorists that have come over this border is astronomical. No one knows how many there are, but I guarantee you there's quite a few that's come across.
What does that say about the sovereignty of our nation?
We don't have any sovereignty right now, not through the federal government. Governor Abbott's the only one that's hanging on to any type of sovereignty for the state of Texas. The cartels have full operational control of our border. And anyone that says otherwise does not know what they're talking about. They're either being ignorant or they're being untruthful, one of the two, because that's what it is. We don't have any control of what comes across our border, period.
How did we lose control?
Being a prosecutor, I think it's pretty simple, but I think people fail to understand this. If you don't enforce a law, people don't tend to follow it. And it comes down to that. It's very simple. If you don't enforce a law, why follow it? And so that's what we're seeing at the border. Without a deterrence in place, people are not going to follow our laws. They're coming in, violating our immigration code, and in my opinion, violating the sovereignty of Texas and the United States.
What's the enforcement that we need to control the border and the influx of the cartels, which are actually making big business out of this?
Right. We have immigration laws in the books right now that do a very good job when they're enforced. And when you don't enforce them, though, the deterrence is gone. There's no benefit to following the law. If you have to go through the proper immigration, routes, it's going to take you longer. You have to wait because America is a place that people want to be. So there's a line. People who don't follow in the line and come across illegally, they don't, it tells me the first act of them coming into our country is violating our laws. And the reason they do it is there's no punishment for it. There's no deterrence. Now, if we enforce the law, and if you come across illegally, now you can't get citizenship or any type of amnesty or any type of asylum. That matters. But right now, they know there's no consequences. And for Congress to pass a bill, or the Senate to come out with a bill that just does nothing about enforcement or create another deterrence, it's a joke. Their bill that they came out with is an absolute joke, and everyone on the border knows it's a joke. And in my view, it's unconstitutional, because any bill passed by Congress that violates the Constitution is null and void on its face. And so even if they did pass it, I wouldn't say it's a valid law.
People that I've talked to here, Brent, whether they're a rancher or an 86-year-old woman or a paramedic in Del Rio, they have all said, we feel that the federal government has failed us. Do you think their assertion is true?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they failed us. They've abandoned us. It's not like, to me, a failure is they attempted, but they couldn't accomplish it. This is intentional. They could fix this issue within a week if they wanted to, or less than a week. They've abandoned us, not failed us. To me, there's a difference. And under Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, they've violated their constitutional duty to the states. One of them being Texas, another being California and Arizona. Absolutely, they have abandoned us.
What would be your advice to the President of the United States?
He took an oath. He put his hand on a Bible and took an oath to uphold all the laws of this land and faithfully execute them. He's violating his oath right now. I would tell him he needs to get rid of his advisors and replace them with people who actually care about this country. Because short of that, I don't see things changing in the federal government. Every act that Mayorkas or the Biden administration has done nothing but open the gates wider versus closing them. And so I don't see a reason why would he stop doing that now and all of a sudden secure the border. I think it's going to take some people getting hurt very bad in America for him to realize, well, maybe I ought to do something different. And I think a lot of the damage is already done. We just don't know the effects of it yet.
You say something about it may take people getting hurt in America, and there are people who fear another impending terrorist attack, and that it may likely come from some of the bad actors who are crossing into Kinney County from Mexico. In addition to that, they feel that there's no way of tracking them because there's been no documentation. Is that something that you're fearful of?
Absolutely. One of the things that I guess we also need to remember, the fentanyl poisons. I don't even call them overdoses, because an overdose means you knew what you're taking and you overdose on it. These are poisonings. Enough people get killed every day that a 747 jet crashes every day. Could you imagine if American Airlines had a 747 plane crash every single day? There would be outrage, there'd be congressional hearings, people would be dragged in front of them, wanting penalties of something. But with us, up in the federal government, they don't care. They are doing nothing at all. And so, to me, it just, I think Americans are tired of it. They realize the danger we're in, and they want change. But our politicians either lack the backbone, or they're doing this on purpose, one of the two. And to me, I don't care what their reasoning is. I just want them to change it and fix the issue.
Have you ever received a call from the Biden administration asking what can we do to address the situation that you're involved in and other people along the border?
No, I haven't. I have not, and I don't expect to at all.
Brent, where'd you grow up?
Right here in Kinney County.
And talk to me about your childhood and what it was like growing up.
I was raised on a ranch 20 miles north of town here, and drove 20 miles to school every day on a bus. And I grew up with the families here, the ranchers, the farmers, everyone in town. And so I know them. The sheriff was my t-ball coach. The judge here was my ag shop teacher. So, I'm here with people I consider family or part of it. It's, I think too many people in local politics and even national forget what the underlying purpose of government is, and that's to safeguard the security and protection of your constituents, who you represent. too many people look beyond that for political power or name recognition to where they're sacrificing the people they actually are supposed to be serving. And I think I'm in a position where I know everyone and I already do care about them. So what I'm doing here in this office is trying to protect those lives and security. And I've had a front row seat witnessing the destruction of their lives and their property. And that's what makes it so frustrating, is like I see it every day. I know the people. And, doing nothing was never an option for me.
And what surprises me, Brent, is that I've talked to people here, and even on their phones, they have text messages from the county when a helicopter is flying over or when there's some sort of chase going on. You literally have to do that, and then people are telling me when they see that on their phone, they're running into their homes to lock down. That's not the way Americans should be living, as I understand it.
Right. We had to implement that not too long ago because of all the high-speed chases and people out on properties to try to let people know, there's danger, you need to be aware of it. And so we get text messages on a daily basis almost about vehicles being chased or people being chased. All the crime that's here, it's text alerts that people live by now. And it's unfortunate, but this is what we've come. I mean, you've seen the border? It looks like a third world country down there. That's Texas, and it looks like a third world country. That's what makes people even more upset. Yeah. This isn't a third world country, it's Texas. But the Biden administration is allowing it to happen. And I applaud the governor, for basically saying not on his watch, it's not. And so that's what Texans are facing right now.
What is your hope for America?
I think the values that America has have seemed to be lost in some people. I don't know why or what is the cause of it, but we're in a crisis in America, not only constitutionally, but the values we have as a nation. Our founders had certain values that they expressed when they formed this nation, and I think those values are degrading over time. And our government has lost itself, especially the federal government. We have to go back to our founding principles and safeguard those. And right now, they're being swept under the rug. That issue, I think, underlies most of the issues that we're seeing as a nation, is our core principles. I think we've lost them. And the question is, will the American people, and more importantly, our politicians, find them again?
Brent, thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, we'll meet Wanda Selby, an 86-year-old woman who says the threat from illegal immigrants is real. Next on America's Hope. And before we go on with our discussion about the crisis at the border, there's also something else that we want to talk to you about tonight in terms of how do you take care of your investments. You see, as we head toward a presidential election in November, one thing you can be sure of, 2024 will be a tumultuous year. How will your hard-earned savings fare? You already see the impacts of inflation at the pump. You see what's going on along the border. You see what's happening as the dollar continues to lose buying power quicker than wages can increase. How are you protecting your savings? It's a simple question. Well, you can consider diversifying with gold from Birch Gold Group. For decades now, gold has been the choice of investors and central banks to hedge against inflation, and now you can own it in a tax-sheltered IRA with the help of Birch Gold. Just text Kelly to 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. They'll even help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. And the best part, you don't have to pay a penny. You don't have to pay a penny out of pocket at all with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of satisfied customers. You can trust Birch Gold. Just text Kelly to 989898 to claim your free info kit. Again, text Kelly to 989898 and secure your savings now. So now, in continuing our focus on the crisis at the border, during my trip to Kinney County, consider the epicenter of illegal immigrants crossing into America, I heard from Americans who are concerned about their personal safety and even the sovereignty of our nation. I met 86-year-old Wanda Selby at historic Fort Clark in Brackettville. Wanda Selby has a lot to say. You are someone who's been living here for many, many years in Brackettville.
Off and on, yes, I have. And I've seen such changes here I live on Fort Clark. It's an HOA, and I used to walk my dogs along the creek here and sit at the Red Bridge, and we have an alert system in Kinney County, and Armando Garcia, Chief Deputy Armando Garcia, when he alerts that there's someone, they have a chase along 131 going to Spofford or coming back. Sometimes the illegals get away from them and they alert us that they are on Fort Clark.
Is that because they're posing a danger to you and to the residents who live here?
Yes, they just alert us to let us know what's going on, that they have a chase going on, and sometimes they run through a fence. Sometimes they get away from the DPS or the Border Patrol, and they will be running across the back of Fort Clark. And so then the helicopters come, and when we hear the helicopters, we go in our houses and lock the door, and we keep our cars locked, and we know that they could be coming up our street. We don't really know. So it's very disconcerting that our country has come to this.
What you're telling me is something that I would expect to hear in a foreign country.
Yes, it's almost like a third world country. Sometimes I think, oh my goodness, what has happened, you know? And when I moved here from Kansas in 1975, we lived on a ranch north of Brackettville, and we had a few illegals coming up the West Nueces River, and we kept extra food, and it was generally brothers or father and son, and they were just looking for work. They were harmless. And now it's a whole different ball game. You know, we don't know whether they are armed or if they are carrying drugs. You know, we don't know. Cartel, we don't know what they are.
Have you encountered any of these high-speed chases?
There's been a few times when I was going on 674 out to the ranch to see my friend. I watch very carefully, and if I see lights flashing, I just pull over, and sometimes they've already stopped them, and I wait to see, are they going to take off, and you know, the coyote or whoever, the illegal, are they going to come towards me or run through a fence? What are they going to do? You know, so you wait until a lot of times, if you're close enough, the DPS or Border Patrol, they will wave you on through.
Yeah, and I guess I should point out for people who may not understand the term coyote, what does that mean in your mind?
In my mind, that's the person that is transporting illegals.
Yeah, and that's a big business.
It is a big business. I have a little gun, a little .38, and I was told, ma'am, you don't want to let them see your gun. They have AK-47s.
Wow.
You don't think that you're safe carrying your little gun, because you're not.
Wanda, how old are you?
I'm 86.
Forgive me for asking, but you never
No,
ask me how old she is.
that's quite all right. I'll be 87 May the 4th. And I have 3 grown sons, and they graduated from high school in Brackettville in the 80s.
What does it make you feel like?
Well, it's very sad and very sickening, actually. You know, I primarily grew up in the 40s and 50s, and it was really very safe world that I grew up in. You know, we walked everywhere. I had a horse on a farm and I rode everywhere. I wasn't, you know, I wish my children had that. My son that lives out on, he lives 7 miles southwest on a farm, and they never leave their children alone out there. If they're going to be gone for the weekend, they come and stay with me, or I go out there, because, you know, you never know what's, I mean, they've never so far been threatened. They've been very lucky.
I find that sad because America is the land of the free, home of the brave,
It is,
except here along the border.
yes. It is very sad. It's really, it's just, you know, when the convoy came through and I saw the flags, the American flags and the Texas flags flying, and it just brought me to tears, you know,
With the trucker convoy that recently
yes,
came through.
the convoy that came through supporting the border, Governor Abbott on the border. I read a story that was very, it kind of upset me because they said they are protesting illegal immigration. That's not what the convoy was about. They're protesting illegals, not immigration. You know, in the long run, that's what our country was built on, was immigration. But they're not protesting. I mean, we didn't get really the news, the correct story on that.
And you know about the news because you worked as a reporter here locally.
I did. For 3.5 years, I worked for the newspaper here, and I very seldom ever missed a commissioner's meeting. I'm a fan of our commissioners and our sheriff and our judge.
You know, a lot of people, when they look at this situation and they don't live here, they take on the attitude that Governor Abbott and the people who live along the border are very callous and given callous disregard to illegal immigrants coming across. But what I've seen here, I've seen that there's been care and compassion for illegal immigrants, so much so as providing them with health care, taking care of their emergent needs, making sure, as you have done, that they have food and water and shelter. Why is the American media getting the picture wrong, in your opinion?
I have no idea. I don't really believe most of the media anymore because I see things for myself, and then I see the story and I think, that's not what happened. That's not the true story. You know, like the convoy, that was Americans. That it had nothing to do with politics. That was Americans supporting our border, trying to keep us safe.
Secure.
And secure.
Sovereign.
And that's what this convoy was about. It wasn't political, I don't believe. I believe it was just Americans.
Wanda, what's your message to President Biden and to Congress?
Well, I wish that they would close the border in the correct way. I don't know about the new
bill that's being
the
introduced
new
by
bill
the Senate.
that is being introduced. I have no idea what it is about, but sometimes bills have lots of tails on them, you know, that in the long run, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But all he has to do, as far as I'm concerned, is follow the law. The law is to protect our borders, and he is not doing that.
Well, as you know, Governor Abbott of Texas was joined by 14 Republican governors, so 15 governors in all, basically saying the same that you're saying, that the law is already on the books, protect our borders, and protect the sovereignty of our nation. Do you feel that our sovereignty is at stake here along the border?
I do.
Why?
We're not safe. I mean, our deputies and our Border Patrol, our DPS, you know, they are out there as our local sheriff. I mean, they are working constantly trying to keep our community safe. And it's a losing battle. There are too many of them just coming. I think, oh my goodness, where are all these people going?
So Wanda, Epoch Times did a documentary called The Gotaways.
Yes,
You're very familiar with that.
yes, I am. Our sheriff was instrumental in getting that in our school auditorium, and many people came to see that, The Gotaways, and it was awesome. People need to see that, and that also clarifies some of the questions that they may have about the border.
So as you continue to see more effort from Epoch Times and NTD News in telling this story about the Gotaways, what is the one message that you do not want America to get away from?
Well, closing the border. I mean, we need to close the border and never forget that other countries, they close their borders and our border is wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how hard our deputies, our sheriff, how hard they try, they're flooding in. And we need to close the border. It's a simple thing. It is a law already. It just needs to be followed.
Yeah. So Wanda, what keeps you going?
Well, I have a lot of faith, and that keeps me going. But I love my country. I'm sorry, but I've always loved my country. You know, when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, it's just a privilege to listen to it and to say it. And I love my county, and I would like us to be safe again.
Yeah. That's your hope for America?
And America, I mean, our country is in a mess. I'm sorry to say. It is scary.
Yeah.
But we need to follow the law. And
Well, also you mentioned faith, and then you have hope, and you have love for your country. Faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these being love. Can that prevail against the evil things that you see going on here?
I don't really know. You can hope. We have hope also that our country will turn around and that.
Wanda, thank you. I hope with you. When we return, I'll introduce you to Wayne King, a Texas rancher who is sounding the alarm for more border security. That's next on America's Hope. Welcome back to America's Hope. All along the Texas southern border are many successful ranchers. Let me introduce you to one of them, Wayne King. He's a rancher who is very vocal about the serious issues that he sees taking place along the border. I first had to begin with what it was like before all of this illegal immigration started transpiring.
Peaceful.
Yeah.
Didn't have to live in fear. And then from living in fear, it gets you angry. When Trump was in and before all of this mess started, we had no problems. You know, every once in a while we'd have illegals come through, Border Patrol would pick them up, they'd return them back to Mexico, everything was fine. And I've been here 6 years, and in the first 3 years, probably maybe a dozen illegals ever that I knew of came through here. Since then, it's just like an everyday episode. And from the damage that they've done to the ranch, the damage they do to our fences, and you don't know what's going through here. I mean, we've had Somalians, we've had Middle Easterns, we've had everything that can come through. And I've had to run them off my porches at gunpoint. I've had to live in my house while anywhere from 12 to 15 have surrounded my house and banged on my windows and doors, and you just wait it out and they go on. But you know, it's not like it used to be. I've had them walk up to here with families up here, and the family walk out the front door and they'll be sitting there on the porch wanting to charge their phones. Yeah, it's hard to grab the concept of what actually goes on.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to fathom that. And where are they coming from? How close are you to the border?
The 277 fence over here at one point is 1 mile.
So they come this way because they're trying to get away from any checkpoint.
Exactly. The ones that come through here, and I wish the people up in Washington could understand this. They keep talking about how many getaways and all of that. They don't understand what those getaways are. If they wanted to be advantageous to the United States, they'd be crossing at the bridges like everybody else. But they don't want it. They're not here to help us. They're here to cause trouble.
Have you encountered any threats from those illegals coming this way?
Personally, no, but I've got neighbors that have been going through checking fences and had groups jump out, grab them, beat them down, grab their rangers, and take off.
Wow.
I've got one rancher just south of us down here. He woke up at, he said about 11, 12 o'clock at night to go to the bathroom, and the kitchen light was on. And so he thought, well, his wife forgot to turn the light off. Walk in, and 5 of them were sitting around the kitchen table drinking beer out of his refrigerator.
You're kidding me.
No, that's what everybody lives with down here. And that idiots up on the hill, they don't know that because they won't come down here. Even our conservative group, they come and they look at the border and they see all of the border damage along the river, but they don't get out here in the pastures where we live and see what we got to go through.
So you're saying to Washington, on the left and on the right,
Exactly.
wake up.
Wake up. How can you sit up there in your offices, go to your fine dining banquets and all of that, and govern me down here on this border? How dare you?
What do you want the President of the United States to do about the problem here on the border?
What I want him to do, he ain't gonna do it. I want him to shut the thing down. You're letting too many people come in, and they're not vetted right, and you're letting the dregs of the world in. Sure, there are people that are gonna be good for the United States. They're looking for a better life. Of the 8 million that's come across and that they've already been given their paperwork, what percentage do you think is actually going to show up on the court date? Because they're being told all 6-8 months. Last I heard, the INS is like 6 years behind. So in that 6 years, how many is actually going to show up? If 1% shows up, I'll be very surprised. I don't know where their thinking's at. Our country has forgotten I call it good old cowboy common sense.
Good old cowboy common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, here you are, you're home on the range.
I mean, I don't care if you're on the range or in your downtown New York. Common sense If you governed everything by common sense, we wouldn't be in this mess.
I mean, it's deep to the point that you've gone around your land. How many, you were telling me that in the morning you travel how far and wide across your property just to check for holes in the fences?
I've got 22 miles of fence I have to check every day. If I don't, and I'm not saying every day I have a hole, but the one day I don't check, if I've got a hole, then I lose some of our important game. It is our livelihood to this ranch. It's what keeps us going. And right now I'm down probably 350, 400,000 in revenue by what's on the outside because of this.
How devastating is that to your overall operating expenses and, of course, the livelihood that you have placed so much stock in?
In what we do here, this hunting ranch, that's all of our income. So when you lose 400,000, we may harvest 300, 400,000 a year, but it devastates the herd because I'm losing stuff that produces the next generation of animals to harvest.
What are you fearful of happening here before anyone does something about the problem here?
You know, I really believe with all what's going on and what's going through the borders without being vetted, and those, the getaways and what's been vetted, because they're not doing a very good vetted job, I guarantee you we're not going to see one, we're going to see multiple 9/11s, because Hamas has already said, we're going to get you on the inside. That's what they're doing. They're coming in.
And you've seen Middle Eastern
I've seen
men.
Somalians, I've seen Middle Easterns, I've seen
China,
the countries from South America, I've seen it all.
I know that you're a man of faith, and I know you're holding on to your faith that things will get better. Talk to me about that and why that's important and significant.
I've got to have my faith because that's all we got right now. I mean, I have faith in the good times and now in the bad times. God is using certain things He's got a plan. He always has a plan. I didn't ever think I'd be part of that plan, but God picked me out and said, Wayne, you gotta start talking. Well, that's something I've never been afraid to do, is talk. But I love this country. I'm 72 years old. I've been from end of World War II up. I've seen it all. The bad times with the Vietnam War and the Gulf War and all of that. But right now, this country we're in bad shape. And without faith, I don't know what we'd do. Yeah. We got as a country, we got to get down on our knees. I mean, that's the first step we got to do.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
God bless you.
God bless you.
I'd like to thank our guests who appeared on tonight's program. And in closing, I would like to talk about them and thank them for what they've had to say, sharing their insights about what they are dealing with daily, living with the issues and the confrontations with illegal immigrants has affected their lives. They no longer feel safe as Americans living on American soil. That raises the question about, is sovereignty compromised along the U.S.-Mexico border? And for those who have spoken tonight, the answer is yes. The hope that these particular people have along the border is that our government will wake up and respond. Until then, they are praying and keeping hope alive, even in the midst of some desperate times along the border. I'm Kelly Wright. Thanks for watching America's Hope. We'll continue this discussion, Crisis on the Border, on Friday. Until next time, continue to watch America's Hope right here on NTD News, and even subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. God bless.